In this BlocksCAD tutorial, we're going to make a pyramid. The pyramid will have random colors for each row. And so when you render, you're going to get a different color for each row. We also can control some of the parameters here. One of them is, for instance, the cube size. We can increase the cube size and the gap between them, and also the number of rows, or we can say the height of the pyramid too. So when you come back and re-render or render, you'll see the changes are implemented automatically. Okay, let's get started. We need three variables. The first one will be the size of the cube. We'll make that equal to, let's say, 8. The next will be the gap. We can make that equal to 1 right now. And then, then is the number of rows, right? So we're going to now make a nested loop, right? We need 3 dimensions. So we're going to do z, x, and y loops. Okay, now we need to make the cube, right? And we need to translate it to a different position based on x, y, and z. So we make 3 new variables called x position, because these will be calculated based on x, y, and z. So the first one, x position, will be equal to the size plus the gap. We have to move that over that amount of space, right? So it's the size plus the gap, and then we have to multiply that by, in this case, we'll do the x value. So the x position will be equal to the x value times the size plus the gap. So that'll move it over the correct amount of times. And we need the rest of them too. We need the y and z to be the same. So we'll change those variables right after duplicating. And so we put everything together. Once we have everything, we'll put it all together. And when you render, just remember to put the variables into their position, right? And when you render, you should get a nice 3-dimensional grid. Okay, let's change those loop to rows, and so we're not hard coding it to 10. Now, the issue here is that we need to reduce every layer. We need to reduce the number of x and y blocks. So we're going to make a new variable. We're going to call it, I think, xy rows, right? So this will be a new value, and it will be based on z. So depending on how high you're up, you need to calculate a new number of blocks. So it will be based on z, and we're going to take the rows, the original rows, right? And we're going to subtract z times 2 because we lose 2 blocks every time. So that's our new xy row number of blocks, right? That's our calculation. Okay, let's put that in and change those variables. Okay, give it a try. Now, what happened is, if you look at the bottom is our pyramid up to this 1 block, but it's going too far. So the z is just too far. So we're going to reduce z by half, and we're going to divide it by 2, so it doesn't go twice as much. It goes half as much up, and we're going to reduce this to 0, the starting position. So let's test this out now, and I think I forgot to put a 2 there, yeah. So divide by 2. Okay, so now as you see, we have our pyramid. So let's take care of those blocks. So we're going to use a function here. We're going to call it let's say f position, it's going to be a return function and it's going to have some parameters, right? We're going to have z, s, g, and xy. The z is for z, s is for side, and g is for the gap. So this is going to be a little formula here. The first thing is we need an offset. So the offset will be the z. For every row, we need to move in a little bit. So it's going to be z times the size plus the gap. So that's the offset to start the row. Then we need to move each block along, along to a different position. So we're going to use the formula. Here I'm using the parameter values, right? And so the first part is the offset. The second part is to move the block along. And that will be, this xy will be will depend on x or y, whatever we send in. So let's apply the function, which is a formula, and let's put in our arguments here. So this is going to be z, right? This is going to be size, that's going to be the gap, and the next part for this one will be x. So this formula will depend on x, right? And the next one should depend on y. One thing I forgot to do is to change x position to y position. So something is going to go wrong here. Right there, it's saying no variable. Let's move and just change that, you see? So that one has to be x and y position. Okay, so now we have everything. So the last thing we need here is a color, a random color. So let's get the color bar and we'll make 3 new variables, R color for RGB, R color, G color, and B color. We'll set them to random integer between 1 and 255 and just put those variables into the color bar slot. We'll move the row, the XY and row code underneath this, right? We can make every block a different color, but we're just making each row. So we take the rows, right, each row, and let's put it back. And now, if we test this out, you see every row has a different color. If we want to change a couple of variables, for instance, size and gap, everything updates automatically.